War is coming to Montana, and this time, the battlefield is not only overseas, it is inside the Dutton family itself. Yellowstone fans, if you thought the tragedy of 1923 broke this family beyond repair, think again. Because 1944 is not just another chapter in the Dutton legacy, it is the moment that could redefine everything we thought we knew about power, inheritance, loyalty, and survival. The official trailer for Yellowstone 1944 Season 1 Episode 1 has finally given us our first real clues. And if you pay close attention, you can already see the storm forming over the ranch. A world war is raging across Europe. Young men are dying on the beaches of Normandy. And back in Montana, an older, hardened Spencer Dutton is standing on land that no longer feels as secure as it once did. But the real question is not whether the Dutton ranch will survive the war. The real question is, will it survive the Duttons themselves? Now let's break down everything the first episode is setting up, because episode 1 is not slow and it is not gentle. It is a declaration. We begin in 1944 with Spencer Dutton, now a man in his 50s, carrying not only the scars of Africa and the tragedy of losing Alex, but also 2 decades of pressure as the sole protector of the Yellowstone ranch. The trailer makes it very clear that time has not healed Spencer. It has hardened him. His face looks tired, his posture heavier, and his silence speaks louder than words. This is not the fearless adventurer we met in 1923. This is a rancher who has buried friends, enemies, dreams, and maybe even parts of himself. The ranch has grown under his leadership. The land is larger. The cattle numbers are higher. The Dutton name still carries weight in Montana. But power always attracts threats, and in 1944, those threats are not just from outside forces, they are growing inside the bloodline. John Dutton II is no longer a baby. He is now in his 20s, raised under the shadow of a father who rarely speaks about the past and a mother he never truly knew. Imagine growing up hearing stories of bravery and romance about Spencer and Alex, only to see a father who is emotionally distant and constantly preparing for conflict. The trailer strongly hints that John has inherited Spencer's strength, but not necessarily his patience. And here is where the historical timeline becomes extremely important. 1944 means one thing for young American men: World War II. The Normandy landings changed history. Thousands of soldiers stormed the beaches under heavy fire. And the biggest question the first episode raises is simple but powerful. Did John Dutton II answer the call? There are strong suggestions that he either has just returned from war or is about to leave for it. And if he does fight in Europe, that means the Dutton heir is once again shaped by violence before fully claiming his place at the ranch, just like Spencer was shaped by war before coming home. History may not repeat itself exactly, but in the Dutton family, it always echoes. But here is where things get even more complicated. Spencer is not alone anymore. The trailer introduces us to a widowed woman living at the ranch. She is not officially his wife, but her presence is undeniable. There is quite tension in the way they stand near each other. There is familiarity, but also distance. And most importantly, there is a child. Yes, Spencer may have another child, a baby born decades after John Dutton II. Think about what that means. A second son, a new branch of the bloodline, and suddenly, inheritance becomes a question again. Who is the true future of Yellowstone? The son shaped by war, or the child being raised directly under Spencer's aging guidance? Even if Spencer does not intend to create division, history shows us that divided heirs always lead to divided legacies. And we cannot ignore the emotional weight Spencer still carries from losing Alex. The first episode appears to subtly show that he never truly moved on. The widowed partner may share his home, but does she share his heart? Or is she living in the shadow of a love story that ended too soon? That emotional tension alone could create cracks in the family structure, because children notice distance, sons notice favoritism, and unresolved grief can quietly poison even the strongest foundations. Meanwhile, the ranch itself is under economic pressure. 1944 America is deep in wartime production. Resources are stretched. Land disputes become more aggressive when food supply becomes critical. Wealthy industrialists and government contracts begin to eye powerful landowners differently. The Yellowstone Ranch is no longer just a symbol of pride. It is an asset in a nation at war. And when land becomes strategic, enemies become smarter. We might see legal threats instead of guns, contracts instead of ambushes. But make no mistake, the danger is just as real. And just when you think the tension is only between Spencer and John, another shadow from the past begins to rise. Elizabeth's son, now also in his 20s, has every right to ask questions about his father's legacy. Jack Dutton's blood did not disappear, it survived. And if Elizabeth decides to return to Montana with her son, that means there are now 2 young men with direct Dutton claims standing on the same soil. We have seen before how dangerous inheritance disputes can be in the Dutton family.
From Yellowstone's internal wars to Jaime's complicated position, history proves one thing: the biggest threat to the ranch often comes from within. So what happens when cousins who grew up apart suddenly stand face to face, both believing they deserve a voice? The first episode seems designed to quietly build this storm rather than explode immediately. It is tension in conversations. It is silence at the dinner table. It is Spencer watching his sons from a distance, calculating something we cannot yet understand. Is he planning succession? Is he testing John? Or is he realizing that the empire he fought to preserve might fracture the moment he loosens his grip? And we haven't even talked about the Native American storyline yet, which the Yellowstone universe never ignores. The Rainwater legacy is growing in parallel. By 1944, alliances and rivalries between the Duttons and local tribes could take a new form. Cooperation may be necessary in wartime, or conflict could reignite over land rights that were never fully settled. If a new generation of Rainwaters rises with education, strategy, and long memory, the power balance in Montana could shift dramatically. Episode 1 is not simply introducing characters. It is placing pieces on a chessboard. An aging patriarch haunted by grief, a war-shaped heir searching for identity, a second child who could unintentionally divide the future, a cousin returning with a legitimate claim, economic pressure from a nation at war, and historical wounds between families that never truly healed.
If you thought the tension was already unbearable, this is where Episode 1 tightens its grip and refuses to let go. Because the real storm of 1944 is not only about inheritance, it is about identity. And the trailer strongly suggests that John Dutton II is struggling with exactly that. He is no longer the child Spencer protected. He is a man who has either seen war or is preparing to walk straight into it. And when a Dutton goes to war, he never returns the same. We saw how Africa changed Spencer in 1923. Now imagine Europe changing John. The beaches of Normandy were not just another battlefield. They were chaos, fear, and survival at its most brutal. If John fought there, then he has already faced death before truly claiming his place at home. And that kind of experience creates distance. It creates silence. It creates anger that does not always have a target. The trailer hints at that distance between father and son. Spencer looks at John not with softness, but with expectation. And expectation can feel heavier than love. John may feel that he was raised to become something specific, the future of Yellowstone, but no one asked him what he wanted. Does he want the ranch, or does he feel trapped by it? This question alone could define the entire season, because if the heir does not fully want the throne, then someone else eventually will. And that is where Elizabeth's son becomes extremely important. Unlike John, he did not grow up on the ranch. He grew up away from Montana, away from the daily weight of responsibility, away from Spencer's strict presence. But distance creates curiosity, it creates longing, and sometimes it creates ambition. Imagine arriving at Yellowstone as a young man and realizing that this land, this empire, could have partially been yours if history had unfolded differently. Jack Dutton was his father. That bloodline is real. That claim is real. And even if he arrives respectfully, even if he claims he only wants connection, seeds of comparison will automatically be planted. The first episode seems to build this comparison very carefully. John Dutton II is the soldier, the ranch-raised heir, the one shaped directly by Spencer. Elizabeth's son is the outsider, educated differently, raised with stories instead of first-hand memories, possibly more emotional about the idea of legacy because he never lived it. And here is the dangerous part. Sometimes the one who grows up without power understands its value more clearly than the one born into it. Spencer, meanwhile, is caught in the middle of something he may not have planned. He spent 20 years rebuilding stability after imaginable loss. He expanded the ranch, he secured its finances, he survived economic shifts and political changes. But emotional succession is far more complicated than financial survival. The trailer shows Spencer watching conversations more than participating in them. That tells us something important. He is evaluating, he is measuring, he is thinking ahead. But is he too late? And let's talk about the widowed woman living at the ranch. Her presence is quiet but powerful. She represents a new chapter in Spencer's life, but also a possible source of division. If she has given Spencer another child, then that child becomes a symbol of a future that John and Elizabeth's son were not part of. Even if the baby is innocent, the existence of a half-brother changes dynamics. It changes how inheritance is discussed. It changes how loyalty is tested. Because if Spencer sees this child as a second chance, a chance to raise a son without war taking him away, then his emotional focus might shift, and older sons always notice when attention shifts.
At the same time, 1944 Montana is not isolated from the rest of America. Wartime regulations affect cattle prices. Government contracts determine supply chains. Landowners who cooperate with federal authorities gain advantages. Those who resist face pressure. This opens the door for political enemies. Wealthy businessmen or government-backed corporations might see the Yellowstone Ranch as a strategic asset during wartime. And unlike previous threats that came with guns and open hostility, these new enemies may come with paperwork, legal authority, and financial leverage. A lawsuit can sometimes destroy what bullets could not. And if we look at the broader Yellowstone universe, we know one pattern repeats itself. Whenever the Duttons are divided internally, outsiders move in confidently. So imagine this scenario. John is either preparing for war or recovering from it. Elizabeth's son is adjusting to life on the ranch. Spencer is aging and emotionally exhausted. And at that exact moment, a powerful external force decides it is time to challenge Yellowstone's ownership structure. Would the family stand united, or would private doubts weaken their defense? There is also the possibility that John does not fully agree with Spencer's old-school methods. War changes perspective. Soldiers return questioning authority. They return seeing the world as larger than the ranch. What if John believes modernization is necessary? What if he thinks expansion or political alliances are smarter than isolation? That would put him directly at odds with a father who survived by trusting almost no one. A generational clash is almost inevitable, and generational clashes in the Dutton family rarely end peacefully. Meanwhile, Elizabeth itself could carry emotional weight that reignites old wounds. She lost Jack. She left Montana pregnant and heartbroken. Returning in 1944 means reopening grief. Spencer may feel guilt, John may feel protective, and Elizabeth's son may feel like an outsider trying to claim a place in the story that began before he was born. Emotional tension layered on top of inheritance tension is a dangerous combination. And then there is the rainwater legacy quietly growing in the background. By 1944, Native families in Montana are navigating federal policies, land negotiations, and wartime realities of their own.